Well, we have a quorum, so we can move through these things.
It's brief,
Oh, thanks.
because there aren't really.
Yeah, we don't really, it's not a hearing, so we don't have to use it.
Yeah.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So move. This is Alicia.
How about a second?
Second.
Jen, that was Jen.
Jen.
So been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Consideration of the minutes of the Design Review Board meeting of December 17th, 2020. Are there any changes or objections or whatever? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the minutes. Alicia.
Okay, Alicia, is there a second?
Second.
Jen?
Jen.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mark, can you hear us?
Is Mark's audio and
I'm not getting any audio. Is anybody talking?
Yeah, we are.
I will leave and rejoin.
Okay, yeah, because and Dave, we still haven't heard from Dave yet. He's on the participant list, but I haven't heard if he can hear us or not.
at the ocean? Sound like the surf coming in. Jen is.
Oh, that might be
spicing-
my audio. I'll turn it off.
Jen is spicing up our Zoom here with us.
Sounds of
That's the
the
sounds of the, right, as if we don't hear the ocean enough.
Okay, Mark's trying to rejoin.
I can text Dave.
I'm gonna turn off my camera and keep eating my dinner until we,
Yeah, do that.
until I need it.
All right, Mark's on. Mark, can you hear us now?
Do you have Dave Doring's phone number?
I have it in my office and can grab it.
I thought I had it, sorry.
Yeah, I do have it in my office. Trying to think if I had it online too.
Yeah, I can't remember where. Jan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I finally got to go for a surf today, so that's always a good
Oh.
day.
Good.
Yeah. It was nice today. I keep muting myself for the background noise here, but it should be pretty quiet soon.
Okay.
No, we like it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
The oceanic sound. Okay.
Well, that hearing, the LUBA hearing was quite some time ago, so it seems like
Yeah.
they should
He said like 2 weeks ago, Bill said that it had been kind of delayed or whatever, but he had expected it, and that was 2 weeks ago anytime, so.
What is it?
Dave's number is 503 436 1464.
Hi, Dave, Mike, Morgan. Are you trying to get on? You're not having any luck? What's the, I'm asking Jeff what the other option is.
Can he just, I was wondering if he could just call into the Zoom telephone number. Can he just do
There's a
that
Zoom telephone number there and you could call in
and just do the audio?
and you'd only be with audio. You want to try that? Oh, it said, please, he's getting a screen that says the meeting host will let you in soon. So you're not letting him in.
Yeah, you can see it. It just says joining, like, I've hit the admit and they're just waiting for them to join. So I don't know if it's something. I hit him as.
It's strange.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, can you hear us? Done. He's connecting.
We're having other difficulties.
Mark? Yeah, well, yeah, we're not getting an audio from you.
Well, Dave, why don't you just call in and
How about now?
Hey, Mark,
Yes,
you can hear us now?
I got you.
All right.
this is a brave new world here. Well, you don't see Dave on the screen though, huh? Anywhere?
He's here, but he just, it's not,
It looks like he's muted
it
too.
looks like he's muted, but
Maybe you, Dave, can you unmute from your angle, from your side?
see if I go up and hit that ask to unmute, that's what I've been clicking and it doesn't do anything.
No dice.
No luck.
Okay, well, Dave, just call in and we'll put you on audio, just audio only. There should be a phone number on the invite or on your email. A whole bunch of
Yeah, on the second page of the agenda.
On the agenda, yeah.
second page of the agenda.
It says,
Dial any of those numbers on your,
Meeting ID. Well, I think, you mean like San Jose, Houston, any of those numbers would do
you
it?
can dial any of those and then you put in the meeting ID or just walk through what they tell you to do.
Yeah. You get that? You see all those phone numbers? Okay, give her a try. All right. Yeah. Okay, give her a try. All right, bye-bye. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so election of, let's wait a minute, but this next item is election of officers.
So Mike,
Yeah,
Well, while we're waiting, and coming up, waiting for election of officers, I have one more year. How many more are you? Think we need to train some of these helpers.
that's not a bad idea. Do you know where I am?
I do have it, but not on me.
So,
I can grab it.
yeah.
I've been on since,
Let me see if I can pull it up.
probably since 15 or 16. So I'm happy to hand the gavel over to some young whippersnapper.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to explain what it is.
Well, you've been watching, Alicia, you've had a few months or a year, about a year, I guess. You joined us a year ago.
Did I?
Yeah, about then, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
or I thought it was
So,
in the
yeah.
summer. Maybe not.
so can you guys see that? Can you see it, Mike?
Oh, you found it, okay.
So yours, Mike, is through 22. So not 2022, you're through that year. So next year.
Okay,
And Mark is through this year.
okay.
But it looks
Yeah.
like to me, Mark, did you know, it looks like to me, you didn't have a partial term or?
No, I've had, this will complete my second full term
Okay.
this year.
Yeah, that's what it says, cannot renew. Jen just updated this. And then Dave can renew and he's good through the 25th. So he's got a while.
Yes, yeah. Dave, Alicia, and Jen are all long-termers.
Okay, I think Dave's trying by phone, so let's see if this works. Okay,
Mark, are
Okay,
you our listener
yes.
now?
I can hear you.
uh-oh, getting a little feedback.
Maybe put your phone on speaker, Dave, and stand away from it.
Yeah, that's good right there.
There you go.
Well, I just took it off speaker.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's better.
That's better.
All right.
Okay. I
Oh,
now have
yeah.
a screen that shows my name in two blocks twice, along with Alicia, Jen's iPhone, and the city. But I got no video on my computer.
Oh, really? Okay. So you don't really see any of the screens or anything?
No,
Okay.
I just have a list of participants, I guess.
Okay, well, Mike was asking about, we're at the election of officers phase, Dave.
Okay. All right.
So it's open for nominations for chair. And I'll nominate Alicia.
Well, would Mark like to do it in his final year?
Hey, Mark, can you unmute?
Not necessary at all. I'll serve if needed, but like I say, I'd be happy to let others get some experience and be ready as some of us long timers rotate off.
Well, I would be willing to serve as vice chair. Getting thrown
There you
into the
go.
chair is kind of a big job, but whatever's needed, whoever doesn't want to do it, that's okay. I'm okay doing it. But if you want to do it, I certainly would want you to have the opportunity, or if Dave would like to do it, or you guys have been on longer.
Dave, what is your feelings?
My feeling is my term is up in April, and I'm not sure if I'm going to re-up yet or not. So I don't think I would want to do the chair.
Mike, you want to do it again, or Jen?
I don't know. Seems like a big job.
Well, I guess if Alicia's willing to be the vice chair, and I've only got, what, one full year, or let's
Want to put that back up?
put that back up.
You have through next year.
Through next year. So I have two full years.
Yeah.
So I'd be willing to be chair for the duration of my term, and then, but as long as we had a, good backup, if that's all
I
right.
I think we've come to that we nominate Mike for chair and Alicia for vice chair.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
And we have Dave and video right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hang up the phone because I think this is actually working.
Okay. All right.
Okay, am I still here?
We have a full vote here.
Okay, so you guys have a slate?
Okay.
So we have a slate, me and Alicia, chair and vice chair, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I voting for, I don't know if I should be voting for myself.
Yeah, it feels
Sure.
weird.
Go ahead. It's
All
okay.
right. All right. Okay. So that's done.
All right, great.
Now we have a couple of, we'll just wait till let's just wait till the good of the order.
Yeah.
Those two minor.
That'll be good.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Hopefully. Not working. I might have to save this here real quick. Try this again. Okay, let me see if I can share this screen here.
I'm getting your screen.
Got it?
Whoa.
All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we've already elected officers, so we're going to move on. I sent you guys a packet, and in that materials, I sent you a code audit guidance questions with a brief introductions, then some discussion items, and then specific questions about the code, which we'll walk through in a minute. And then I also sent some codifier websites, which are just depositories for different codes from across the US, which is really what every planner can review and compare their codes with other jurisdictions. and they're great resources. I don't know if any of you guys got a chance to check any of those out. Unicode, American Legal, and Codebook probably have the majority of the codes from different, all the way across the US on that. And you can go in by state, or you can compare it to different areas and, coastal towns, for instance, or resort towns. And I do that quite a bit. Anybody get a chance to do that?
I have to say I didn't. I'm
Okay.
sad to say.
Yeah,
I
no, not in
think-
detail.
I think you pointed us to one of these last year about this time, and I looked at it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also gave you a few links to Breckenridge, Modesto, California, Beaufort, and then gave some examples from Alpharetta, Carmel, and Del Rey, I think, or Del Mar, yeah. So I just wanted you guys to get a sense of how different areas do it and some of the latest ones. I do believe there's trends or ways that you can look at these and group them. And we'll talk a lot more about that when we actually do the code audit and when we start looking at our code. But what I wanted to kind of let you guys talk about tonight is, how is the current code working for you guys? And just get some thoughts on these kind of major discussion questions, and then kind of drill down to get a few answers moving forward. So anybody want to kind of give their thoughts on how the current code is working for them, or do they utilize it as it is, or any of those kind of questions?
Anybody want to jump in?
Well, I think this is Alicia. One of the things I talked about before is just, and I saw some of that in the materials that you provided, is that I'm not sure our application requires all the things that we need to be able to conduct the type of review that I think we're asked to conduct. And so, I mean, that is an area I would like to strengthen.
Okay, yeah. On that point, I kind of made a light of that last time, what the gap between what we require for application and then, then what we're actually utilizing in the standards for review, and then what the end product, what do we want to get out of these standards, right? And that's really often why a community does a visioning process first, and then they'll do the comprehensive plan and then get down to the code and code audit. That's what I had suggested a couple of years ago. We're not going to do that, supposedly. I think we're going to just go to the code audit, but hopefully we can figure that process out as we do that. But in that application, one of the things that I want to point out, and we may look at a few different examples after we talk that I sent you, but if you look at, say, some of the more recent ones like Beaufort that I sent out, you can see that there's a full section at the beginning usually of how does this code work, and that's for any user. How does it work for them? And then what's the workflow for each type of application? And one of the problems I think with ours is that, and we'll see right after we do this kind of exercise of the work session and get into these minors, that we have, this major modification that really, it's like 10 pages of stuff that the person's or the applicant is supposed to supply, but we really have what's considered a minor, which just comes down to Mike's review, but we have no kind of middle ground. Somebody can't come in for an administrative approval of this, or this. And so when you say what you just said, Alicia, I mean, it's perfect sense for me, because for me to require someone for a minor revision of the facade or something to do what's required, under the site plan, the landscape plan, the lighting plan, and all this, it's just absurd. So it's really up to me to kind of say, here's what's required, but it may not be what you guys want or what the community wants to see as far as an application materials going forward. Does anybody else have any kind of, how the code works for them, or, even in the review process, when you get an application for review, what do you do? What's your normal way to review? Do you just wait and hear the applicant and what they say, and then kind of say what I'd like to see, what it, shape it towards what you want to see, or do you actually use those standards?
Well, this is Mark, and I guess something I got lost on recently was, and I'm in my going in my 8th year, so this happened and I missed it. The site plan, landscape plan, etc., architectural checklists that are in our packet. At one time, it's been suggested that we actually follow those and utilize them. And with a previous planner, there was a time when he requested we actually turn those sheets in when at the close of the meeting. And I can see some value to that. I mean, I found those helpful. But I also recently found I got lost. That was, I think, on the recent fireplace up there. And I raised a question about lighting, which I know used to be on those checklists, and I couldn't find it there on the current edition of the checklist. So
Okay, right.
I don't know when and where those got changed. And there was another type of thing that, I remember used to be on those checklists and now it's gone. And I did check the code, and that's why I deferred to you, Jeff, on that lighting condition that I asked for on that last one, was because I couldn't actually I couldn't find it in our portion of the code.
Right.
I could find it elsewhere in the code, the lighting requirements, but I couldn't find it in the design review section. So
Yeah.
that was why I was. That's the way why I asked those questions and talked the way I talked.
Yeah, and so Mark, on that, who was it? Was it Reinmar or Mark that had you guys score those sheets?
Mark,
Okay.
And again, that was his desire. I don't think he was very successful. I remember I turned a few in, and I, again, as a committee, we didn't behave like he wanted us to.
Yeah, I think we've not been doing our homework is a big problem. I mean, we go take a look at a project and don't fill out the checklist or score it like we should. 1, 2, or 3. We just kind of wing it when we come to the meeting,
Right.
which is a little bit of a problem. I think the other problem. We haven't had a big project for a while, but I think the other problem is that we don't have the quality of submissions that we should in terms of architectural drawings or landscape design.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
And do you guys?
Unless it's something new, we don't get that level. And again, as I think you mentioned already, Jeff, some project, and we had one recently. Okay, the landscaping, they weren't making any changes to it, so we didn't, didn't need to address landscape.
And from my point of view, I think having, like you mentioned the checklist. I know I don't know if that's something you did in the past you were mentioning, but from just being like a newcomer, it would be so incredibly helpful to have that, just to keep it organized. Because a lot of the time, like going through the codes and keeping them in the back of my mind, but then also listening in on the meetings, I feel like the applications, when so far that I've seen, make sense just about the goals that they're trying to achieve, but it's so focused on that things are being, like the last one with when it was Public Coast adding the fire pits, it was so much focus on architectural changes versus when it came up about landscaping or it came about lighting, it did just feel like an afterthought, and not something they really went through on the application. And it's just so nice for us, like when we're given an application, it feels so focused on whatever they're trying to achieve, that there is that checklist of, are we covering all the bases, I guess. Because it's hard to go through all the code in the moment.
Yeah.
But if there's something just to scan and make sure, like, okay, are we checking all the boxes? Then I would love that.
Dave, you got any thoughts on how the current code is working?
No, not really. I've had a tendency in the past to just kind of look at what's been submitted and evaluated against what I think, rather than going through the individual items on the checklist.
Yeah. So, some jurisdictions will do, or they're moving towards a more common practice is having some do it as at a neighborhood level. We probably wouldn't even have a neighborhood level, but they would do, it's almost like a public pre-application meeting. So in other words, what they would do is they would bring and, break it down into kind of do their presentation, and then the board or the commission then reviews that, but then offers suggestion along with the public of what other materials they need to see to make the decision. So it's really just more of a two-step process. And I think that from most of the places I've worked, the sense I get here is that almost every meeting, whether it's planning commission, DRB, or council, there is almost an expectation that the decision is going to be made in the first meeting or that night. And that's not normal in a lot of places I work, where there is more of a review process on the first meeting, whether some treat it as a work session type item, as our city council does now. But there is often that. And so I don't know if you guys have thought about that, as maybe when we redo the code audit, we might have some type of form for that.
I feel like that.
I think there's a lot of merit to that, because that's where we pick up a lot of these things. Oh, well, you didn't tell us anything about the lighting, except I see lights in the picture, so
Yeah.
when you come back, bring that information.
Yeah, I like the idea of that as well. And also maybe there's sort of like a tiering, I guess, different tiers of it, where like the larger projects, or maybe if there's just something smaller, there doesn't need to be a two-step process, depending on how large the scale is, like a large, medium, small, because it just seems, I don't know, not efficient if it's such a small project to make someone do a two-step process. But
Yeah.
for some of these, I think, they're having that process would be great.
Well, that's exactly one of the things we'll talk about here, is kind of the tiering, because I do think that's one of the key things I want us to get to, is to tier these to an administrative level, then at least a minor and a major, but possibly a minor, and then a major and then a new application where it's a brand new plan type of thing. So we can
Right.
talk about that. So then the discussion questions 2 and 3 are about the strengths of the current code and then areas of concern or, kind of the weaknesses where we could improve. Any thoughts on kind of, what you like about the current code? I mean, do you think that, it hasn't functioned the way, Mike, maybe you can start, do you feel it's functioned as you've wanted it to over the years? I mean, have you got the product that you want out of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think as far as it goes, there's certain, just reading Carmel's things, there's some interesting, interesting standards in Carmel's that we could easily, or should put into our code. But I think for the most part, if we did our homework and the proposals were complete, I think we're doing a pretty good, we're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
The one question that people have talked to me about recently is the idea of and this is kind of a hot button item, but reviewing houses over a certain size. And I know the planning commission had thrown out a number, of limit on something over 2,000 square feet, but if you could identify certain areas of the town like Hemlock and the beach, the ocean front and Hemlock, and say any building, over any single family residence over, say, 2,000, 2,500 square feet shall be reviewed by the design review board. I think that would make the planning commission probably happy and make, a lot of other folks happy. I mean, most of these enormous houses are second homes, so you're not, it's not like, very rarely is it somebody's primary residence.
And so, Mike, on that, would you suggest then only for new structures or for those size new structures or for any improvements from those size houses and above?
Well, I think you could add maybe over a certain square footage expansion, such as 10 or 20%. Anything over, say, 20% would have to come back to the DRB.
Yeah.
For existing houses, but that's just something, I mean, there's one house in particular, which will remain unnamed by me, that has kind of, caught a lot of people's attention, and I've heard it from multiple, a lot of people.
I think you'll see in next week's planning commission meeting on the house size, I've seen a couple of letters already that mention that, and I think there's even one with pictures involved. So
yeah, but I mean, if the DRB, if the board here agrees that's something that of interest to them, maybe we could communicate it to the planning commission.
Right. That's what I'd like to do. So those exact questions are coming up in those specific ones, and we'll walk through those to get your guys' recommendation as we move forward in that. So anybody else that want to talk about kind of the strengths or what they think the weaknesses are of the current code?
Well, I just had a question on, Mike, what you're talking about. So would the purpose of having it come to the design review board be to review the design only, or to deal with that cap size, which the planning commission's dealing with, the maximum square footage? Would it just be an extra layer of review once the maximum or the trigger is established, then it would come to us for review so that they're not having to deal with it?
Well, I think absolute maximum is really problematic because, you know, there are a lot of properties, not a lot, but there are properties in town where, you know, a 5,000 square foot house on, you know, on an acre or 2 acres would not, you know, would not have much of an impact. But when they're in critical, when they're on critical routes or very visible routes, then I think that would trigger it. I don't agree that there should be an absolute maximum. I mean, I'd hate to see a 20,000 square foot house, Mar-a-Lago or something, but I certainly think that we could review it for consistency with the environment and certain architectural standards, you know, such as the use of shingles and pitched roofs and all that stuff.
And so, yeah, I think, Alicia, what I believe the DRB's function is, and what I think Mike's was saying is that, yeah, you guys would set this kind of the thresholds that, and this is not for house size, this is for what will come before you as review. And maybe we can talk about that when we get down to specific questions, is that, what would that be? Mike's saying it might be a combination of things where it involves the location, size, and
materials.
And then you get into whatever you're going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I could see that being on, part of this responsibility. I mean, if someone's going to build a large enough square foot house, it would have a major impact from a design point of view on the city. I could see that going through design.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it as well. I just was looking for some clarification of what we were trying to achieve. And I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Just for historical, just, because I've been here so long, we went through, the FAR argument, like 10 or 15 years ago. And the floor area ratio is what I'm talking about. And there was a proposal to reduce the floor area ratio from 0.6 to 0.5. I think all the builders and realtors and all the folks came to the hearing and complained, and the council decided to drop it and go back to 0.6, which means it's basically a 3,000 square foot house on a 50 by 100 foot lot, which is really, quite large, especially like in the President streets. But out behind east of 101 or, on some of the, some other areas where there's some larger lots, it doesn't have much of an impact.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys also are aware, but Commissioner Kerr at the last zoning meeting also requested that all homes along the oceanfront be limited to a building height of 18 feet. So I think that will also be on as a point of the discussion with the zoning recommendations coming up next week. So that would have huge impacts.
Yeah.
So anyhow, let me really quickly, so these first 5 discussion questions, it goes from where are the areas of concern, then it says how could we improve the standards, and then how could we improve the process of review? That's what number 5 is supposed to say. If you guys have thoughts on those and you don't, we don't have to get into them now, but if you have thoughts on them and you want to email me those thoughts or call me up and discuss them, I'm happy to talk about those as we move forward. But I would like to get into the kind of the specific questions that I have listed. And that's what we're just started this discussion. So question 1 says expansion of applicability. So there's been discussion, as Mike has just suggested, that whether the design review board should be expanded to include other types of development, single family being one of those. So should we expand design review by type, such as all single family homes? And I think the discussion went that at least some single families should be reviewed. Is everyone kind of in agreement that at least some single family should be reviewed?
Yes.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, okay.
I do, sure.
And
Yeah,
so,
I'm in,
yes, Alicia, you agree as well?
I do. I guess the part that's hard is how cool would it have been if we had established a historic district or something years ago, or some, like, how do you delineate what area you're caring about, and calling it the presidentials or whatever, that works. But I'm sure that there's, I mean, we have to be very thoughtful about that, because there are going to be people that perceive themselves as winners or losers in that once a decision is made on who, or by type or location, that kind of thing. So it could be.
It'd be very tricky. I mean, I think we kind of, there was discussion of that, when the comp plan zoning ordinance was being developed here. And, I think the decision, the thinking was that we're not Astoria, with grand Victorians, and what we have are coastal cottages, like, on Jackson Street, that are quite lovely, but probably not suitable for, a family, or, for a larger group of people. And so I think that was dropped. But one thing you could do, I think, would be to try to designate. I mean, this would take a lot of work, and I don't know if this is even feasible under Jeff's, with Jeff being a sole practitioner. But you'd have to identify all of the historic houses, say over 50 years, cottages, that sort of thing, and then to designate them as historic. And then you're either going to say you can't tear them down, or you're going to have to move them prior to being able to demolish them. You're going to have to move them or incorporate them into the design. I mean, there's lots of ways to go that cities do.
I don't want to be misunderstood to say that I'm proposing that. I'm not. I guess I'm saying is that would have made it easy for us to be able to apply some kind of standard. But we don't have that. We have to go a different route, right? And so now we have to pick different criteria, and we have to be very, very thoughtful about how we choose that, right? Because it impacts people's property. And so it's not going to be simple for us to go forward.
But I also feel like what you're saying, by actually creating sort of structure on deeming what is historical and what's not, does set a foundation for the criteria that you have moving forward for making those calls on, different single family homes.
Yeah, I agree with Mike on a couple points here. Is that one, and both of what everyone said, is that I think this is an important topic. I think it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of resources and effort. I've been involved in 2 different historic district designation types of processes and rewrites of historic codes. So I've done it, and I know what it entails. And it's for St. Mary's, Georgia, which claims to be the second oldest city in America. But it's about like saying you're home to Lewis and Clark over here, I think. anyhow, it is an old city and it had some amazing structures. In fact, where Burr went to hide out when he, after he shot Hamilton. So it's got a great old story there. I think we have some of those, just like you said, they're different than those types of structures, those old antebellum homes or stuff. But I'm definitely involved in that. I mean, interested in doing that kind of work. And I think we should look into doing that in the coming year. As you know, I think this code audit's going to tell us where our gaps are, and if we want to achieve these things, how we're going to get there. And really what I'm just doing tonight is to kind of get us thinking about those and, you know, give us a little bit of maybe homework to where, hey, we'll prepare for the code audit by going through this together and saying, hey, these are areas that I want to look into more. And if any of these areas interest you, I can give you great resources by just giving me a call up, and I'll send you an email with links to certain things that I think you might want to look into. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you said you were looking up Carmel's codes and things like that. I wonder if, I mean, they have so many historic beach cottage homes and that like quaintness still. I wonder if there's something there in their, in their audits and codes and everything to what we're talking about.
Sure, and I'm happy to look into that. I'm also going to be asking for even if it's a planner one or a permanent tech to help out our department, because
Great.
we have quite a bit of big projects that are wanting, you know, this. I get the sense they want to do. I mean, take the elementary school. You know, a planner should be working on that, not just whoever. And
Right.
and you know, I really feel strongly about that. And there's no one better than the planner to be doing that planning process, and yet I just don't have time. And so I would like to have the time, and I'd like to have some support to do this kind of thing. So
I might add one. Yeah, I agree with you entirely, but I think incorporating historic value into the criteria at some point would help. With one big brouhaha we had, and I don't know who, Alicia, you might remember this, or I don't know who else might, but when they tore down Osborne's grocery store, that came before the design review board, and Osborne's is where the Tom's Fish and Chips and the Osborne's ice creamery is. And it was a, you know, classic old, beautiful old building, but in rough shape. And, you know, the decision, I think it was like a 3-2 vote by the DRB to allow them to go ahead and replace it with a modern building. But I think historic value should be incorporated into the criteria. And I think, Jeff, with your experience, you could probably come up with, you know, the criteria that would.
Yeah, I think one of the things I pointed to in some of this discussion is form-based code. I think there's some great elements that could really be broken down into form-based code that really would help this process. And so I've also, you know, wanted to talk, we talked about single family as a possible area of expansion to include, if we did go into that route of single family and we did do by size, the element that I spoke a little bit about with Mike is that, so if we did go by size or location or type, you know, there's an element that we spoke about at the beginning about also having administrative kind of review and the ability to break it down into a kind of a tier level of certain types of things, for instance, signage and minor shingle repairs and things like that. So that's one area that we'd also want to do that with. We talked about location, presidentials is one, but we've also, Mike brought up kind of visible streets. So whether it's Hemlock and Spruce or Sunset, Fir and Fifth, I think some of the primary things, and we could do it by classification, where any structure along those or any single family plus along the thoroughfare. Any thoughts on that? Anybody think that everything along Hemlock should be included in review?
I would agree.
I do.
Yeah. And then we just spoke about historic. How you like that picture, Mike?
It looks familiar.
Looks familiar to me too.
Okay.
So one thing, you spoke about form-based design. I mean, I think the city of Portland, some other larger cities have done a lot of work in terms of, prescriptive standards, banning maybe what's derisively called snout houses.
Right.
Which are, houses with the only thing you see is the garage or the garage sticks out, out front, and requires that the garage be, set back behind the front plane of the house by a certain distance. And I think a good architect, would do that, but I think, a lot of people who just buy a set of plans off the shelf, don't know any better.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that in the thing.
Yeah, we have, even when I worked in Bryan County, Georgia, for the county, they had design guidelines that would not allow snout houses. So
They called them snout houses down there.
I'm trying to remember, there's two terms they use, snout houses and one other, but it's a similar kind of term.
But especially sorry.
I think one of the important things about that is this is a walking community. This is a place that focuses on your ability to walk and see things, right? It's not a car-driven society here. And so I think that's why the snout house doesn't make sense as a dominant feature here. It makes more sense to focus on, little cottages with little porches and that kind of community feeling. And so I think that can be part of the values that we push into the code to help us prioritize those needs over other things, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, I think we're gonna, as time goes on, I think the president streets are going to be particularly vulnerable. I mean, Alicia, I'll do a shout out, to you, how with the way you rebuilt your house, and that's quite unusual actually. But most people that buy a $300,000 or $400,000 lot are going to want to put a 3,000 square foot house on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you overcome the economics of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot also to be said for Mike, when you talk about you buy the $300,000 lot or whatever and what you expect to put on there. I think that one of the things the city has to think about in this moving forward into the next era is that with that, if you're going to want smaller homes or whatever, they're going to want more community amenities. And whether that's nicer community facilities, whether, libraries, parks, and meeting halls, that's, that's what makes up for those other civic spaces, top-notch facilities. So anyhow, so the next question moves into question 2 about clarification on the granularity in these decisions. And, currently we just break it down into major and minor, and it all goes through the DRB chair. And I'm going to send you guys this presentation. I don't think they had this in their packet, did they? So I'm going to send this to you, and I'm going to give you guys what I recommend, or what I'm recommending at least to think about, and then we can talk about it in the future. But the breakdown of major to minor. Right now, we have anything that's multifamily and above, and it's a major, that's considered a major. And I'm proposing, all new construction or new development, and this is the older ones, or what it currently is. And so if we look at that language, it looks at, these are the kind of the sectors it breaks it down into, where you have the new commercial and non-single family structures, new landscaping, site improvements, and public improvements is kind of the most major things. The other things that come before you guys as majors are new accessory dwelling units, new freestanding signage, new or replacement non-wooden signage, home occupation, structural or exterior modifications, and cottage industries. And then we move down into kind of quasi minors that Mike often just kind of approves by saying, well, it's a minor request and they're only replacing shingles, or they're only putting in mechanical and those kind of things. And Mike approves those. So I've kind of come up with new ones to think about. And maybe we'll talk about that at a future meeting on where we want to go with this. And then question 3, appropriate standards of review. So Jen, this is that checklist. It's in every one of your DRB staff reports. It's the very end. I don't know if anyone actually gets to it. Mark was saying that, you used to score these things in past. And then Alicia brought up that, I think at one of the hearings is that, a lot of it just doesn't apply to a lot of the different ones that you approve. And so it is kind of in between there. So I would like you to look through there before we get into the code audit, and, be prepared to when we meet with the planning commission and the council to kind of discuss, how you'd like to change these things or when we move through that exercise.
Perfect.
I have a question,
Sure.
but Jen, do you have one first?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Jeff, I know that you're busy and overwhelmed, and I don't want to add more to your plate, but at the same time, I feel like it would be super helpful for us if a staff person, and I hope you do get an extra staff person, could go through and find the ones that apply and have the staff report speak to how the proposal does or doesn't meet the criteria. Like, I feel like that's, as volunteers, we should be doing homework and we should be reviewing things, but that's a lot of work to go through and, go out to the site and read it all. And it would be very efficient if one person did all that work and then the group received the recommendation. But that is, I totally recognize the body of work and the effort involved, because that used to be my job, but not here, in a different jurisdiction. But is that a reasonable possibility?
That is exactly, that's what I love that feedback, because, unfortunately, the problem with the way this one's arranged is it is huge. So I'm happy to go through and pick out the applicable language and present that. What's often done, as Mike says, in most jurisdictions, the staff doesn't have to do that, because the applicant will make the argument in their application, and staff responds to the applicable ones or picks out ones that they missed. But to do the picking out of the ones that they miss in this could, unless I just do the applicable is quite an extensive undertaking. But no, I think that is what we should be doing. So I'm happy to do that.
Well, I like it if we put it back on the applicant and then you're just evaluating the applicant's statement of how they do or don't meet. I mean, I think that is a perfect place for the staff person to be, but we're just not getting that quality of application or that kind of focus on the application. So.
Yeah, and I take part of that blame because I believe that I've been here now long enough to at least recognize what the weaknesses are. And I really think that the one that's the biggest weakness is just the application itself. And so I think that that's where I'll spend my next month or two, is just kind of bring back to you guys a updated application form. And it doesn't have to be it's a provisional one until we come up with new ordinances, but it's something that at least kind of get them to explain the project to the standards a little better than, because I can see if say Vito or Dave or Jay, if they see this site design criteria for the majority of the projects, they don't know what to do with that. Or they just don't make the effort, or they don't have the time to make the effort. So.
I don't know if it's made clear who's supposed to fill out the matrix though. Does it?
I don't think so. Not in the application. No.
Yeah, that's kind of a, I think my wife used to be on DRB, and I think that she was of the opinion that every member of the DRB scored the criteria themselves, and then it was sort of tallied, to determine whether or not they met the criteria.
I think that's how it was. It looks like that's how it was intended.
Yeah.
Or at least as far as a guide.
Yeah. But maybe in the, when you get some help, the applicable criteria could be highlighted in the application or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's more work.
Mark, did you have something to say, or? I can't hear you. Let's see, asked on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think to me, the biggest value of the checklist is just to identify the things that the applicant needs to be able to respond to, and whether it's in their application somehow or be just prepared to answer our question. And the same thing for us using it to make sure that, oh yeah, we're going down here, they're changing the signs and the siding material and all of that, but oh yeah, they're hanging up a new string of lights, just like I say, a checklist so we don't miss things.
Yeah, when I worked in Idaho, we had that exact format, and that's how we did our pre-application meetings.
Yep.
And so we sat down with the applicants, we went through the checklist and checked the things that they're required to give us. And then when they brought that back in, whoever took in the application materials reviewed that those things that we had circled, they checked them off, and until they were checked off and I reviewed it, this wasn't considered a complete application, wasn't put on an agenda. So, I think that's kind of the tough route that you have to take a lot of times when you have those that are your standard applicants and they're not meeting the standards. I think that's really what we're going to have to do. So.
Well, we don't require a pre-app, do we?
No.
Yeah. I mean, even Warrenton of all places, requires a pre-app. They charge $150, and you sit down with the planner and the building official and the fire chief and everybody.
Yeah.
Astoria the same. The county I think it's $300, $400, something like that. But I can't, you know, I mean, our fees are so ridiculously low currently, you know, that,
Well, that's going before the council next month is a raise in those fees, land use fees, so.
um, but getting back to, you know, the President Streets, and not because I own property there, but I think some combination of form-based design and you know, good standards and possible review by the DRB would certainly be in order. And if everybody agrees with me, I think that could be communicated to the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Haystack Heights is a lost cause, you know, when, you know, I mean, all those crazy houses that are up there, you know, that Mark and Dave and Mark and Dave and I, but I think the President Streets are sort of the defining community of Cannon Beach, on both sides of Hemlock.
Yeah, I agree. So, so just to finalize where we're at here. So yeah, appropriate standards of use. So if you get a chance, look through those. Like I said, give me a call or email me. You'll find that if you go through any of these, Alpharetta, the ones that I've presented, Del Mar, Carmel, Beaufort, a great one for form-based code because it is a historic, a coastal town on the South Carolina coast. It's a beautiful little area. It's a great one to kind of review and look at and how that form-based is. But all of them really, as far as the standards of review, break it down into this kind of threshold, contextual, and aesthetic kind of things. And you will see them with the same exact, does the plan create a public or private nuisance? Does the plan create health, safety, or welfare issues? Those kind of threshold questions. Does the plan depreciate the value, contribute to the aesthetic, the scale, massing, and those things? Those are, then they get in the context. How does it fit in with, that's what scale, massing, and height of the surroundings and the community. And then further into the specifics that are regionally sensitive or coastal or mountain and those kind of things. And so there's different ways to do things. You can do it by guidelines. In other words, these are the guidelines that you may follow and have more flexibility, or as we do it, where truly it's more of a standard that you must meet, or a form-based, which is a prescriptive type of thing where you meet these kind of forms and you might have it broken down into certain type of districts or modules that have different forms that meet different standards of that area. And so, like I said, there's great examples. I think this may be from Alpharetta or Beaufort, but you know, you'll often see this kind of approach where it's broken down into an administrative level review, the design review. This tells you the exact process one must go through. They'll have a flow chart that shows that and how we get to the products that we want to get to within the community. So that's it for me. And that's all I really wanted to talk about tonight. Like I said, I will work on the application though, and maybe bring that to you next time we meet. We have some minor modification requests that we want to talk about. And Mike and I visited the Cannon Beach Mall. And I don't know if you guys have been downtown lately, but they've got the new bubble wrap exterior. And they had to throw that up because of the last storm that came through, ripped off a bunch of the siding, and they were having some immediate water damage. We got the after the fact call from Coaster, from John, and he's asking, hey, here's what we need to do. And once they got involved in just tearing off and replacing, they couldn't just do that because there was, some of that wood is just sponge, it's just in different, and so they're gonna have to do some replacement, but what they really wanna do, and I think Mike, I hope I got this correct, so that's why it was nice having Mike there on the visit. I think what they're wanting to do is similar to what you see there on the corner, in that they're wanting to do, well, not the rounded part, right? But they're wanting to do shingle, and then they're going to come back, I believe, with shingle all along this front kind of
in the curve.
Yeah. This is on the backside there where Sesame and Lily's is. And they did this not long ago where they did there's the shingle down on the bottom and then
Lap siding, hardy plank.
hardy plank, and that's what I was trying to find, hardy plank up above. And so they first approached us about doing this exact kind of thing all the way around. But once we started the discussion, would they be amenable to just doing the shingle all the way around the front? John thought that was possible, that they would do that. And so he's going back to ask about that. We got to talking and meeting there with Alton Fire personnel, and really they just wanted to bring back and redo what they were doing. But when we got to the discussion, they had a couple of these what we thought were minor changes to, instead of putting back the vinyl siding up top, or to change that to hardy plank to go shingle, we felt that if they keep it in the same kind of paint and context, then that would be a minor modification. They're just going to replace the windows with like structures. The only kind of modification they'll make is this little next to what Alton's got, it's the recycle area. It's going to be a similar thing. They're going to have to take it down to get the asbestos out of there, but they'll replace that with a similar kind of thing, which Dave Veneta is going to draw up sketch up something. I'll bring it back to you guys. But we wanted to bring it to you guys. This is over there on the other side, which will be the phase 2. They're not going to do that this year. It'll probably be next year when they go into that, but it'll be a similar thing where they're going to, you see there over on the left, it'll be replaced to look like that. Did that cover it? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a big improvement because the building is really in need of a lot of repair, but the fact that that they're willing to do shingles, and they will be painted shingles or stained on that curved portion of the building, and then new windows with trim. I think they did say they were going to trim it out, wide trim would be a big improvement for the building.
So so I understand they're getting rid of the vinyl siding on the whole building eventually and going with lap, or going with shingle as much as possible, or going with both like they've got on the top and the bottom. Well,
the rest of the building is to be determined and would probably have to come to us for review. But they want to do this under an emergency basis because they're all their siding blew off. So the question for you, with the board, is is this, do you agree with me that it's a minor modification to just shingle the interior courtyard curve of the thing, and then we'll talk about the rest of it down the road?
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I guess I just was confused if there was going to be two different top and bottom, where you're saying the whole thing is going to be shingled on the interior curve.
Whole thing.
And then they're going to replace windows with wide trim.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's, I don't know if it's minor or not, but I support it.
Yeah. Well, normally, siding replacement is siding and window replacement is a minor,
Yes.
minor modification.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that it's going to have a major impact on the look of the building, and I think in a positive way, right? I think that's a good
Right.
thing. It'd be more
Yeah, I think-
compatible than it is currently, and I think that's a great thing.
I think so too.
All right. So the second one is a Cannon Beach Fire. We met the chief over there yesterday, and they're having issues with walkthroughs between their property here and those apartments and those complexes over there and that other street, and getting quite a bit of I think breaking into cars and stuff like that. And walking around inside the bay when it's open and no one's, not full staff around. So they're just a little, they'd like to put up a fence, and they're proposing to match or a similar fence to this is the neighbor. And that fencing there, and maybe even tying into that fencing, and they're going to ask them whether they can just tie in right there along that line, the property line, and then lead that back towards the building, have a gate there at the corner of the building, and then wrapping back towards the street here over on Sunset along the curb. And they wanted to know if that would be a minor if they did something like that. And so, Mike, your thoughts?
I thought it was minor myself, but it's a kind of a group decision at this point. It's beyond the three goofy looking guys there in the parking lot.
Any thoughts, anybody?
Yeah, I would agree that it's minor. Sounds good.
They said they do.
I'm worried calling fencing minor because I know neighbors argue over fence all the time.
True.
And it's a lot of fencing. It sounds like.
Right, yeah, it's extensive.
Well, we can easily have them bring it before you guys. We can put it on the next agenda.
I think we would have less trouble with their neighbors if we did.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all. Anything else, anybody, or?
Any good of the order? All right. I guess
Hang
we're
in there, stay safe.
Yeah.
adjourned. Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Right.